Welcome to Meet the Candidates. The Frankfort Plant Board has given us an opportunity to come in here to the studios and talk with our candidates for the various offices that are going to be on the ballot for May 22nd. Today we're going to be talking with Eddie Sayre, who is looking to fill the position of PVA. Now, as we have stumbled through that for a time or two, it's Property Valuation Administrator.
That is correct.
And it's a rather specific office that is definitely different from most of the city and county offices we've been discussing lately. Eddie, if you would tell us, please, a little bit about who you are, what your function is within the community, and why you're willing to tackle the responsibilities that come with this office.
Well, professionally, I have practiced real estate with the firm of Capital Realty Investments and also with the Jess Kinman Company for more than 30 years in Franklin County. Prior to that, I served with the Commonwealth of Kentucky Labor Cabinet in a variety of capacities, including Chief Economics Analyst, Agency Administrator for Research and IT, and also as the Secretary of Labor's Authorized Agent and Senior Hearing Officer while over there. Consequently, the business of data is something that I'm focused on. Data synthesis, analysis, and more or less coming to a rational conclusion based on the synthesis of all of that information, which is part of the role of the Property Valuation Administrator. He values assets and property, real, tangible, intangible, so on and so forth, and sees to it that those assets are taxed fairly relative to one another. Probably the most obvious role of the PVA, the one that is most obvious to the citizens here in Franklin County, is that's the staff that establishes what the market value of your property is for the purposes of taxation relative to the rules of state government. In my capacity, both as with the government and as with real property valuation, marketing, and sales of all types of real estate rights, gives you it just gives you the good overview of all of the functions of operating a successful property valuation administration.
Well, it is key to the functioning of our county government, but there is relatively little involvement from the rest of the county officials. You do provide information to them, but
that is correct.
They're not directly involved in the functioning there. What do you see as being the issues that are coming before the PVA's office here for Franklin County?
Well, the primary issue is equity, fairness, and transparency. We can all agree that we're going to have to take a little hit if all of us are taking a hit, because we're in this together. That's another thing that somewhat is a little bit baffling to me, and maybe it's probably a throwback to another era or whatever. This is a partisan election. I am a Democrat. I subscribe to the principles of the Democratic Party as opposed to the opponents. However, there's common ground, and everyone needs to be treated equally under the law, regardless of their political party affiliation, because we're all in this together. We're all in this boat together, although we certainly do have some divergent views about how the best way to get from point A to point B is.
And I think that's what we would like to hear from you is how do you see getting from point A to point B, and what will be your philosophy of functioning within that office, and how do you view the particular office now as opposed to under your supervision?
There are, as I indicated, I believe people deserve transparency in government. Everybody needs to know what the rules are, know that the playing field is level for all persons. I pride myself on excellent customer service. I always did when I was a government employee. I have prided myself on excellent government service to both my individual and institutional clients that I have served over time in the capacity of either real estate appraisal or real estate marketing of the various types of rights that they may own. I see this as everyone, I want everyone, if they happen into the PVA office or if they happen to call down there, I want everyone to know they're going to be treated with the respect that all citizens are due, and they're going to leave there hopefully feeling that they can be proud of their experience, their consumer experience with the individuals in the property valuation office. For some time, and I guess maybe in a prior life before I started practicing real estate, and I say practice because you have to keep on practicing until you get it right, and I don't know that you ever get there. But prior to that, I was extremely interested in management. I tried to pride myself in being an excellent manager and administrator of persons and providing service to the public, as well as involving all of the persons around me in let's solve this problem, and then also asking the question of those around me, what are we going to do next to make it better?
Now, you have mentioned 2 or 3 times the need for transparency.
Right.
What would you do to ensure transparency to your satisfaction and to the satisfaction of your...
The skill of the staff. Nothing. There's no substitute for knowledge, be it market knowledge, county knowledge, knowledge of the geopolitical environment, so on and so forth. And I want to make sure that the staff is well trained and committed and concerned. We're fortunate in that in all of my interactions with the Property Valuation Administrator's office over time, there's always been good staff down there, good people there. I see no reason for a lot of change of like the personnel or anything, because I feel they are committed individuals to the job at hand. I'd just like to set the standard. You know, they say if you're not improving, you're going backwards. I believe that. I believe that. That's why you always have to say, what are we going to do today to make it better? What are we going to do today?
Do you have plans for making things better?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. As I said, if I'll observe for a little bit when I first get there, and if I see things that I think may be deficient that would allow people to do a better job at what they do, then we're going to see to it that they get proper training or whatnot for dealing with the persons that we have to deal with, the citizens that we have to work with that come in there that have a question about this, a question about that, so on and so forth.
Well, that does lead me, because I am among the majority of the citizens here who have very little understanding of what the PVA's office actually does and how they function. I know they set the valuation of the property. That's essential.
Right.
But what sort of information do you provide to us, and what do we need to know that you're being transparent in what you do?
You can come down and see me, and all your questions will be answered straightforward, in a straightforward and polite manner. And hopefully when you leave there, you'll say, that's my government at work. I'm proud of them. I'm proud of those folks that are down there. I mean, you're not going to be bursting with pride when you come out of it dealing with the PVA, but you're going to pretty well know you got your money's worth from those folks that are working down there.
What sort of questions would you imagine people come in to ask of the PVA?
A lot of times they'll come in and ask, why is my automobile valued at this much? It might be November when they're paying taxes on this automobile. Well, one of the reasons why it's valued as that much is because as of the prior January the 1st, that automobile, according to all the data collected and supplied, said that that's the market value of that vehicle. And sometimes there could be adjustments that might need to be made. For instance, let's say the vehicle was wrecked. We didn't know that. We didn't know the person had a wreck. There might be an adjustment required in the value of that vehicle as a result of that.
Well, and I'll have to admit, I have no clue about how I would go about doing that. If I had a vehicle that I felt needed to be valued differently from what you say, what do I do?
You come down and you ask the folks, you explain the situation and see if you can get an adjustment if you think one is justified.
So it's a matter of just coming down to talk to someone?
Right.
You don't...
You can come down and speak with someone. You can call on the telephone, and they'll be certainly glad to listen to you. They may not be able to do anything about it at that particular time. If you come in, they may be able to do something about it, or they may not. You know, you know, a lot of people feel like maybe in real property, although the tax rates are lower for real property than they are for personal property. In a real property, a lot of folks see what their assessment is, and they might think that that's not in line, that may not be fair. So they want to come down and see if, and check. And the clerks there will, and the PVA will review what their grievance is, ask them if they've got any information, and show the individuals that feel like they may have been aggrieved or there may be a mistake made, why their property was assessed at what it was, and it's relative to all the other competing properties in the area.
Well, now we've seen a lot of changes in property values lately. How does the PVA office go about determining whether it rises?
When a property sells, the next January the 1st, chances are, that's not always the case, but chances are the assessment is going to be raised to what was paid for the property. That's more or less looked upon as proof positive. That's what that property was worth. There could be exceptions to that rule, but generally, when you've got a willing seller and a willing buyer, they reach a meeting of the minds at X amount of dollars, let's say, or X amount of chickens, goats, or the market value of those goats and chickens that they traded, then that would become the value of the property. Additionally, we're set up, you can't visit everyone's property every year to make sure that their assessment is accurate. The way it's currently done, and the way I think it should continue to be done, given the amount of resources that are devoted to the project, is we look at comparable sales within various areas, and we actually do a real live on-ground survey in each of the neighborhoods and areas of the county every 4 years. It's kind of on a 4-year rotation to make sure that somebody comes around and looks at your property and tries to make sure it's in line, your assessment is in line. Now, sometimes in the past, people have been a little hostile when they see a PVA staff, Deputy Property Valuation Administrator, out looking around the neighborhood. They think they're out there to raise their taxes. That's not what they're doing there. They're there to make sure everyone is treated equitably and fairly, and the assessments are in line with market reality and relative to their neighbors' homes. The PVA does not raise or lower taxes per se. They deal with market value of things. The taxing authorities are the ones that decide how much the taxes are. Now, granted, they do base it on, this is the tax roll, this is the value of the property in this county and that has been established, or within this city school district or whatnot. That information is there and it's available, but the various authorities that have the power to tax, your school boards, library boards, state governments, local governments, everyone, they're the ones that actually establish what your taxes are. They just establish it based on that. So there's no reason for anyone to get too worked up if there's a deputy PVA in their neighborhood looking around at their property, and in all likelihood we'll make sure that they are clearly identifiable from the vehicles they're driving, the jackets they're wearing, or if it's warm weather, we don't want them wearing jackets. We like them to be out there and be comfortable as possible in some form uniform clothing with credentials, so everyone will know they're not coming around to steal your car or anything. That's not the repo man.
There's also a lot of talk at this particular time about budgetary issues being affected by cuts. This is an office unique to the local government area in that it is funded and operated as a state office. Have you had an opportunity to look into the budget issue to see if this particular budget will be affected by any of the proposed cuts?
I'm sure to some extent it will, but we're going to keep on keeping on, and as long as everybody's inspired, we're going to by golly come to work and do our job. That's what it amounts to. Now, I think probably so much of government is dependent upon how the picture is viewed, is dependent upon who's in power at the time. In my estimation, the current administration does not necessarily have the best interest of Franklin County at heart. Just basing that on their actions, I'm not friends or enemies with any of the people or whatnot, but I think all of us in the community should strive to make the pie a little bit bigger. We always need to work on that. There's only so much cutting you can do. We want to provide necessary services, but people don't want to pay for a whole lot of frills. They just want the best they can get with the funds that are available. That's what we intend to do. Now, I do have an initiative, or I'm planning an initiative that I think will be better for the routine users of our services. By the routine users of our services, I mean the legal community, the real estate community, the real property appraisers that are out there valuing things on a fee basis for their individual and institutional clients. And that is, since I do have somewhat of a background as well as an interest in information technology, Boy, it sure is a different game than what it was. You know, I grew up on the other side of the digital divide, but I've been dragged kicking and screaming, and now I booted myself in the behind and said, get with the program, get in the 21st century on the right side. I think our information system that's available online is not up to the speed that it could be, based on some experiences I've had elsewhere with other firms. I would like to make that a priority of enhancing our online systems, services, geographic information system services. A lot of folks are visual. They love to see things visually. A picture is worth 1,000 words, they say. And you can convey a whole lot of information in a picture or a diagram. There I go, I'm digressing to my economist hat or whatever, but you can learn a whole lot more from a picture or a diagram than you can by reading a long and involved paragraph about why something is the way it is. If people look at it, they'll decide why it is the way it is. Most people have pretty good walking around sense, I've seen.
How do you go about providing that? Is there a tremendous expense involved in developing that?
Like anything, there will be an expense involved, and I'm not certain if exactly where the funds are going to come from to do that. I'm not in favor of charging big user fees, because that makes it not so transparent. Mm-hmm. I think that's one of those situations we're just going to have to work out. We're going to have to look and see where the money is going to come from to do this. But I believe we can raise it. I believe we can raise those funds.
Do you have any idea of what kind of a time frame you're talking about? How extensive this development would be?
The term of office, hopefully it never stops developing. Mm-hmm. Because it's been my experience in the digital environment that things are always evolving. You know, something that's here today is going to be superseded and outdated 3 months from now, and there's so I would envision it as building the foundation for an ongoing project. But after you institute items, and they'll come, I envision them not coming online, boom, like there they are. You get a modicum of success, and you build on it and on it and on it. So it'll go on forever, maybe. I don't think we're ever going to get perfect on it. And you might reach the point, though, where your marginal cost equals your marginal revenue, or the marginal, when I say revenue, I mean the benefit. Mm-hmm. When you reach that point where those two meet, enhanced services may have to be left up to the private sector, and then if someone wants to use them, they can buy them. You know, they can buy those tools or whatnot. But the office term is 4 years. Certainly, I intend to serve out the full term. I'm not a young man, but I'm not worn out either. I'm still out there. Mm-hmm. Alive and kicking each day. And consequently, I intend to phase this project in over the 4-year term. As we get into the design and development of the enterprise and see if we can find out where that point is. I don't think we're there yet. But when we get into the design and development and see more about that, we will know more about it at that particular time. But that is an aspiration of mine, and it's more or less a goal of mine. I think it's worthwhile. I think it's worthwhile and aids in transparency, because people can look. That information is there, available to them in a format that they can appreciate.
And we may find out a whole lot more interesting things about the PVA's office because of it. I'd like for you to look into this camera. Mm-hmm. and tell our viewers why you're the best candidate and why they should vote for you.
May I take just a moment of personal privilege here? I have a real good friend that I call the most interested man in the world, and he has been at the forefront of my thoughts the last several weeks. His name is Jim McWilliams. He is battling disease, fighting a good fight, and has returned home. He and his beautiful wife, Fonda, are recuperating out at the Gap here in Franklin County. And I just wanted to say, Jim, we wish you strength, buddy, and we've saved your seat at the table. With respect to why I should be the likely choice for the property valuation administrator, I've cited some reasons, alluded to some reasons earlier why I would be the best candidate for the job. I'm familiar with the data. I view this as the culmination of a long-term, successful real estate career. This is the crowning glory to that, and it's a chance to move on. Real estate might be a young person's game to some extent, and I think maybe it's time for me to pass the torch, take what I have learned over time and apply it to the government service and the service to the taxpayers and citizens of Franklin County. To that end, I feel that my experience and the opportunity to serve in this position, I'm one of the few people that the state deems qualified to serve in this capacity. I believe it's just the right time, and I feel like I'm the right individual to represent the citizens. Consequently, I ask for your vote. Eddie Sayre, Democratic candidate for Property Valuation Administrator, PVA, on May 22nd. Thank you.
That's been our opportunity to get to know a little bit more about Eddie Sayre. We want to invite you to stay alert for information about the candidate forum on April 26th down at the hotel. And please, please join us for live election return coverage on May the 22nd. We'll be coming to you from the county clerk's office to bring you those vote totals just as soon as they're available. And make sure you come back here for more Meet the Candidates.